You are standing at the threshold of a crumbling chapel. The wind howls low, but inside there is only silence. The doors, half rotten and burned at the edges, creak open with your touch. A fine layer of soot clings to everything. It dusts the altar, the torn hymnals, the eyes of the saintly statues now blind with ash. The air smells of old incense, wax, and something fouler beneath, like something once holy left to rot. You take a step forward. The floor groans beneath your weight, not from age alone, but from memory. Something was buried here, not bodies, perhaps, but truths, forgotten rituals, forbidden knowledge. You pass beneath arches, charred black by a fire no one recorded, though everyone remembers. The chapel's bones are scorched, but its soul, it lingers, watching. In the shadows above, once proud murals have flaked into illegibility. Angels blur into demons. A halo here, a horn there. The distinctions fade. A single red candle flickers stubbornly on the altar, though no one has lit it in years. You feel it before you see it, a presence, not evil, not sacred, just ... Ancient. They say that after the fires of the Inquisition died down, what rose from the smoke was something darker, not because the evil survived, but because it learned to hide. They burned the witches, they exiled the pagans, but no one ever suspected the priest. The parchment records of the church tell one story, but the bricks beneath this chapel speak another. And if you listen closer than you've ever dared, you'll hear the whispered names of those who wore the cassock by day and called upon shadows by night. This is not a story of 7 men. It is the story of one soul fractured across centuries, repeating itself, mutating, always hiding behind the same mask. Father, brother, reverend, ... You move toward the confession booth. Its door hangs crooked, as though someone left in a hurry. Inside, claw marks stretch across the wooden seat, but not from fingernails. No, these grooves are deeper, gouged with purpose, ritual. There is a faint scent of myrrh, but it's old, like dust soaked in sweat and smoke. You hear a breath, but you're alone, aren't you? You turn to the pulpit, cracked open along the grain. Beneath it, a hidden compartment, a book, bound not in leather, but something ... else. The lettering is smudged, but legible, ad gloriam, inversa, to the glory reversed. This is the thread you will follow. Each chapter of this book is a priest, each page a transgression. 7 names, 7 sacraments, unholy. And when the last story is told, you may find yourself asking, were they madmen who betrayed their vows, or merely mirrors of a church that forgot its own face? Chapter 2, Father Veritas and the Book of Tithu. Find yourself in 17th century Italy. The streets are narrow, crooked, paved with blood and faith. At their center stands a cathedral with walls of bone-white stone and stained glass eyes that refuse to blink. Inside, Father Veritas preaches, but it is not the gospel that echoes through these sacred halls. It is something far older and infinitely more disturbing. You're not here to observe his sermon. You're here to open the book hidden beneath the altar, the one stitched together with human teeth. His congregation adores him. They say his voice heals, that he touches the sick and their fevers flee, that he speaks the truth so sharply it cuts through doubt like a dagger. But you notice the way they tremble after Mass, not from awe, from exhaustion, from pain. You walk the marble aisle and kneel beside the pulpit. The air here is different, too warm, too still, like the breath has been stolen from the room. In the sacristy, incense curls in tight spirals, clinging to your throat like a warning. There is a library beyond, hidden from view. Its doors are bolted shut, yet they creak. Open when you near. Books line the shelves, hundreds, but one stands out, bound in pale hide, etched with symbols that don't belong to any Christian tongue. Its pages, ... ripple. You reach out. Your fingertips graze something solid beneath. The cover, Molars, the Book of Teeth, a record of every confession Father Veritas ever heard, transcribed in blood, written through pain. Each tooth belonged to a penitent, pulled not from corpses, but from the living, torn out as offerings, sealed within the book to bind their sins. He claimed it was mercy, that he was helping them purge evil, that the pain was holy. But when you read his words, you feel no holiness, only hunger. In the margins, there are drawings, anatomical sketches of the human mouth, the tongue dissected like meat, sermon notes that repeat the same phrase over and over. Speak and be severed. Behind you. You hear the creak of floorboards. You turn. There's no one there, only the pews and the statues, and the eyes of the Virgin Mary, now crying a thin line of something red dot in time. The Vatican would come to inspect the cathedral. By then, Father Veritas was gone. His books burned, the altar sealed, the confessional boarded shut. But some say they still hear it, the rattling, the clicking of teeth, shifting in the walls, as if the book was never destroyed, just ... buried, and maybe, just maybe, still being written. You close the book, but the taste lingers, like iron on your tongue. You've spoken nothing, yet somehow ... you feel something has already been taken from you. You find yourself in 7th century Italy. The streets coil like serpents through a city drowning in incense and rumor. Crumbling frescoes depict saints with hollow eyes, their halos flaking, their smiles too sharp. And at the heart of this withering parish stands the cathedral of Father Veritas, a man beloved, a man feared, a man whose sermons made grown men sob, and women lose time. They called him the mouth of God. But no one asked who's God. You step through the iron gates. They shriek in protest. The air is too warm, like a breath exhaled by the building itself. Candles burn in corners where no hands have reached in days. You walk the central aisle. Beneath your feet, marble worn smooth by knees, and something else, small, round indentations in the stone. Tiny half-dash moons, ... teeth, ... the first, pew bears. Scratch marks, not from rats, from fingernails, from people trying not to kneel. You pass parishioners on their way out. Their faces are pale, lips trembling. One young woman clutches a bloodied handkerchief, hiding her mouth. Her eyes flick to yours for just a moment, then lower, as if you shouldn't have seen her. You enter the sacristy. The incense thickens. Smells of cloves, candle wax, and something sharper beneath the copper tang of something freshly pulled from the flesh. A single candle burns beside an open ledger. Every page is full. You move deeper. A second door waits. Bolted, it groans as you pressed your palm against it. Not locked, only resisting. Inside is a private library, dustless, warm, breathing. You find the book immediately, not because it calls to you, but because everything else recoils from it. It lies flat on a table of dark wood, cracked at the corners, bound in something pale, not leather, no, something that still remembers being skin. Its edges are rimmed in tiny human teeth, molars, incisors, baby teeth. Even the title is carved, not written. Ad dentum, confessions, carnels, the book of teeth. You hesitate, then open it. Inside are hundreds of pages, written in dark. Ink or blood, it's impossible to tell. Every page is labeled with a name, ... and a sign. Written in Latin, beneath each name is a drawing of a mouth, sometimes open in agony, sometimes sealed shut. You turn the pages faster now. On some, a real tooth is glued beside the name, as though proof was required. On others, the pages are blank, but warm, as if they're waiting. You read a passage aloud, just a phrase, linguam praesigi. Animum liberas, cut the tongue, free the soul. Behind you, something creaks. You turn, but the room is empty. Still, watching. And then you notice something. Stranger, a crucifix on the wall, but upside down. Its Christ weeps from the mouth, not the eyes. Beneath it, a bowl, carved with grooves. It isn't decorative. It's worn from use. It's a spitting bowl. Father Veritas was not. Excommunicated, because no one ever caught him. He vanished the night a bishop arrived, unannounced. The bishop found the sacristy stripped, the altar desecrated, and the confessional filled with blood, not words. They sealed the church, burned the pews, cemented the crypt. But some say the book was never destroyed, that it appears in forgotten parishes, that if you listen too closely to your own confession, you'll hear a second voice beneath the priest's, whispering, repeating your words, biting down on them. You close the book, but the taste lingers. Sharp, metallic, familiar dot. You run your tongue across your teeth. One feels loose. You didn't notice that before, and outside, the church bells begin to toll. But the sound is not for the living. You travel north, England, 1851. The air colder now, with a dampness that sticks to your lungs like mildew. The village is little more than a bruise on the edge of Somerset, all crooked roofs and limestone graves older than memory. They say the place never quite healed after the Black Death. The plague took the body, but something else stayed behind. St. Dunstan's well lies just beyond the tree line. A spring, they say, healing waters. Sacred, but no one drinks from it now, not since the smoke came, and not since the girl. You arrive at dusk. The villagers avoid your gaze. One woman pulls her child behind her skirts when she sees you. Another man whispers, too late. It always takes the curious. No one stops you, though they never do. The woods are silent, too silent, no birds, no insects. Just the crunch of frost-hardened moss beneath your boots. The trees lean inward like they're eavesdropping. You smell it before you see it. Smoke, not from fire, but something older, like scorched bone and bitter myrrh. Acrid, sweet, wrong. The well appears suddenly. There's no clearing, no path. Just a ring of stone in the middle of nothing. Choked in ivy, cracked with age. Number. Bucket, no rope. Just still, black water and smoke. Thick ribbons of it drift slowly upward, not fast like fire, but lazily, as if exhaled from something deep below. It doesn't dissipate in the wind. It resists. You step closer. Your eyes burn. The hair on your arms rises. There's something watching. From beneath, the first to vanish was a shepherd boy, then a widow, then 3 children, all in 1 week. They say the girl saw it first. Little Elspeth Crane, 6 years old, hair white as linen. She told her mother about the woman in the well. Said she smiled from beneath the water. Said her mouth didn't match her face. Then Elspeth began sleepwalking, always toward the woods. The last night they found her shawl hanging from a branch, perfectly folded, like an offering. You kneel at the edge of the well. The smoke thickens. You hear something now, faint, like whispers. But not in English, not even in Latin, a language older than scripture, older than stone. The surface ripples, not from wind, from breath. A shape rises beneath, pale, elongated, arms too long, hands spread like spider legs. The face comes last, or something pretending to be a face. Too many teeth, not enough eyes. It smiles and speaks, but not aloud. It speaks behind your thoughts. It calls you by name, the name you forgot you had. You stumble back. The trees lean closer. The smoke now wraps around your legs like vines. You hear voices in the mist, all the missing, whispering your sins and something else. A rhythm, clink, drag, clink, drag, chains. You look up, she's there, not in the well behind it now. The girl, Elspeth, her hair floats, though there's no wind. Her eyes are milky, her mouth moves, but the voice is not hers. The woman in the well wears her like clothing, and she's still growing inside her. The legend is older than Christ, older than Dunstan, who was no saint. He was an executioner, a binder of things. The well was never holy. It was a lock, and someone broke it. The smoke isn't corruption, it's memory. This is the place where they burned her. The witch, the first one. But she didn't scream. She just opened her mouth and breathed in the flames. And then she would dead you run. Branches claw your skin. You can't tell if it's blood or ash on your hands. The smoke follows you not like air, but like will. It chooses where to go. It curls into your ears, your eyes, your mouth. You hear the well calling, not with voice, with hunger. Your legs go weak. You fall. Behind you, something scuttles. Not footsteps, limbs. And then, silence. The smoke clears. You're back in the village, but everything is wrong. The people are still, eyes open, mouths agape, like statues mid-dash scream, and then you realize they aren't breathing, they've exhaled. All at once, you check your pocket. You didn't put it there, but it's there now. A tooth, small, wet, still warm. Your tongue finds an empty space in your mouth you didn't know was missing, and far off, beyond the trees. The smoke rises again. The child's name was Mercy. Name like a prayer, soft, hopeful. But no one in the convent dared say it aloud after what happened. You find her story buried in brittle parish records, written in a nun's trembling hand. Half of it's crossed out in red wax, the rest scribbled in Latin, as if even language feared what she saw. You arrive at the convent on the outskirts of York. The gates creak open without touch. The iron is cold. The stone walls, pockmarked, with moss and clawed ivy, loom like giants hunched in prayer. Inside, the silence is thick, not peaceful, suffocating. Sister Agatha, the last living witness, sits in a room with no windows. She won't look at you. Her eyes are cataract white, but her voice is sharp, unshaken. She didn't draw from imagination, she says. She copied them, like she was tracing a memory. You ask, what did she draw? Sister Agatha only says, wings. and then begins to weep. Mercy was found swaddled in the ruins of a church that burned itself down. No lightning, no candle, just fire that crawled upward against the wind. She couldn't speak for the first 3 years, but she would hum one note over and over. It wasn't a tune. It was a signal, and she drew on walls, on bedsheets, on the insides of her arms, always wings, not soft or feathery. These were torn wings, ragged, veined like leaves in winter, with teeth tucked beneath the feathers, and eyes, too many eyes, unblinking, staring out. You enter her room. It hasn't been touched in decades. The nuns boarded it shut after the black mass of the unseen choir. You pry the planks loose. Dust rises in clouds. But beneath the dust, drawings dot every surface is covered. The walls are a tapestry of impossible forms. Wings that bend in fractal geometry. Halos that drip oil. Mouths stitched into palms. But the eyes follow you. Not metaphorically, literally their pupils shift, subtly when you turn. As if recording, there's a sound, too. A low murmuring. It's not coming from the room. It's coming from beneath your feet. The drawings began to change after Mercy's 8th birthday. She stopped drawing on paper and started carving into the stone beneath her bed. She said they taught her how the nuns found her one night, eyes rolled back, whispering in a tongue no one had ever heard. A spiral of teeth etched into the chapel floor. A visitor came the next day, not a priest, not from any church, just a man in black, no name, no record of arrival. He asked to see her sketches, and when he did, he vomited blood. His hair turned white in minutes, and he walked backward out the gate. They found him a week later in a field, curled into a shape not meant for humans. His bones folded like paper cranes. One nun, Sister Beatrice, tried to burn Mercy's drawings. The fire wouldn't catch. Instead, the smoke took shape. Tall, winged, humming taught Sister Beatrice's heart. Stopped in the middle of a prayer, but her mouth kept moving. They buried her with a crucifix. When they opened the grave a month later, the crucifix was gone. Something else had taken its place. A feather, stone black, sharp enough to cut skin on touch, warm like flesh. You find it in the chapel, still lodged in the altar. You shouldn't touch it, but you do. Your vision twists. The room fractures. The drawings on the wall begin to move. Wings flutter. Eyes blink. Mouths open in silent hymn. And then you see her, Mercy, standing behind the altar, her eyes pitch black, her face cracked down the center like porcelain. But her hands, they still draw, even in the air. Fingers etching sigils into invisible canvas. You try to speak. She holds up a page. You recognize your own face on it. Mouth sewn shut, eyes screaming. The last page in her book is dated March 3rd, 1853, the day the convent doors locked from the inside. The day 27 nuns were found kneeling in blood, their mouths full of feathers, their tongues removed. Only one word was written in blood above the altar: Ascension. Sister Agatha says Mercy vanished that day, or maybe was taken. The drawings remain, sealed behind 7 layers of iron and salt, but sometimes, she says, late at night, ... they hum ... as you leave the convent. You glance down at your hand, a smear of charcoal across your palm. You didn't have a pencil, you didn't draw anything, but there it is, an eye, inked into your flesh, and beneath it, in the old tongue, a word you shouldn't know, but you do return. You were warned about the church long before you stepped foot in the village. They bury time there. An old man at the tavern told you, not people, just time. He wouldn't say more, just raised a trembling hand and mimed the ringing of a bell. Dong, dot, 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 not. A chime of celebration, not mourning. Something else, something ancient, the church of St. Bartholomew's. Crown stands crooked on the hill, its steeple leaning slightly as if ashamed. The graveyard around it is full, yet too quiet. The moss-covered stones whisper nothing. No birds, no insects, only silence. And him, Jonas Bell. He's been the bell ringer for 53 years. He has no children, no family, no known origin, and no voice. He never speaks, not because he can't, but because if he does, the bells ring themselves. He learned that after the fire of 78, when he shouted for help, and 30 bells across the county screamed at once, even the broken ones. One man went deaf. Another tried to hang himself from a church rope that had never been used since then. Jonas never opened his mouth again. You meet him at dusk, he nods once, hands you a key to the bell tower, but does not follow. Instead, he returns to his pew, alone, sitting beneath a stained glass window that bleeds backwards, red running upward into the sky. You climb the tower. Each step is a confession. The spiral staircase narrows with every turn, until the stone scrapes your shoulders and forces you to crouch at the top. The bell it has no clapper, and yet it rings once every week, always at midnight, even when there's been no death. It started during the famine. Villagers were starving. Children vanished. One woman fed her husband his own brother and called it mercy. The priest at the time, Father Rourke, hung himself from the bell rope, but the bell didn't ring then. Instead, it rang the next night, and the next, and every night after. When no one had died, that's when they realized the bell was keeping a tally, but not of death, of something worse. That's Jonas was just a boy then. He found a bone beside the church, long, thin, with runes carved along the marrow. He brought it inside. The bell swung without rope. The air bent, the walls cracked. Time jumped, and Jonas, aged 10 years in a second, white hair, cracked knuckles, eyes like smoked glass. He's been ringing that bell ever since, but never again by hand, no. One knows what triggers it now. It rings exactly 13 times, always at midnight, never, more never less, and never on nights when someone dies. In fact, villagers started to notice the bell rings only when a soul should have died, but didn't. A girl survives a fall off the cliffs. The bell rings. A miner buried alive is found unharmed 3 days later. The bell rings. A boy drowns for 6 minutes, then gasps back to life on the shore. The bell screams. They say every ring buys time from something beneath the church. Not hell, not God, something older. One man tried to silence it. Mayor Ketteridge, 1906. He ordered the bell cut down, brought in engineers. They climbed the tower, laid hands on the metal. Only one made it back down, and he was blind, blinded from the inside out. His corneas black as tar. He screamed the same phrase over and over before biting through his tongue. It's not a bell, it's a mouth. After that, they sealed the tower, but Jonas stayed. Every week, same ritual. He lights a single candle, walks the aisle, places his hand on the wooden rope that no longer touches the bell. Then he listens, not to the air, not to the sound, but to the silence. And then, at precisely midnight, the bell rings itself. You witness it. You're standing just outside the nave when it starts. There's no wind, no movement, and yet the entire church vibrates with the sound. The glass windows fracture but don't break. The pews creak with pressure, and beneath your feet you feel a pull, not gravity. Something yearning, like a mouth beneath the soil, exhaling slowly, waiting for something to fall in. After the 13th toll, everything stops. The air smells of rust and rain, and on the altar, where there was nothing before, a single feather lies, wet with blood. Jonas picks it up, looks at you. His mouth opens, for the first time in years, and in a whisper that isn't his. "That doesn't sound human," he says. "It was your name this time." You run. The church behind you shrinks into the dark. But long after you've left the village, on every 13th midnight, ... you hear it again. The bell closer, louder, and one day you notice your own shadow pauses, just a second too long, before following you around a corner. You check your watch. It's 11:59 p.m. And then you are led now through narrow valleys, deeper into the Alps, where the peaks close in like the jaws of some ancient god. The wind howls through fir trees, as if mourning something that has yet to happen, nor perhaps something that happens again and again. This is Glarus, a village once known for its purity, where the people drank spring water so cold it cracked their teeth, and where every home had a crucifix carved from black pine. But you've come too late for its innocence, because one winter morning in 1623, a 10-year-old girl named Lisa was found dead at the foot of the church altar, her small body folded inward, like a prayer left unfinished, her skin frozen, pale, punctured. You're told she'd been fasting for 3 days, part of a ritual of purification ordered by Father Izan, a man whose sermons were said to make strong men weep, and not from grace. He was revered, but something in your bones-deep ancestral knows what comes next. The tale. If Lisa wasn't buried with her, you step inside the chapel. Cold clings to the walls like mold. You touch the pew where she once knelt, and it gives off a faint warmth, as if the wood remembers. Father Isan preached that the body was the cage of the soul, that only through suffering could a child reach true holiness. He called Lisa his white flame, and he demanded from her what no child should be asked to give. She was made to sleep on stone, to kneel in the snow reciting psalms until her voice cracked with blood. On the 3rd night, she collapsed, and that's when the villagers claimed the miracle happened. Her body, though broken, glowed faintly. Her eyes remained open, reflecting candlelight like polished bone. Isan declared her a saint. He preserved her body beneath the altar, but not whole. Parts of her fingers were removed, wrapped in velvet, and sent to Rome. You want to turn away, but you see it. A tiny reliquary still rests behind the altar. Inside, the bones of a child's hand. You can almost hear her, not crying, singing, because her voice was said to return on the feast day of St. Agnes. A song with no words, just a high, keening note that freezes your spine. And if you stay long enough, the villagers say, Lisa appears in the mirror of the baptismal font, not as she was, but as she is now, silent, radiant, and missing her hands. What do we make of this? Was she chosen or sacrificed? Some say Father Izan was excommunicated in secret, others that he vanished one night, his footprints ending at the edge of the frozen river Dot. But in Glaris, they don't speak of him, not aloud. Only the children whisper his name when the snow falls too quickly and the candles flicker for no reason. You walk out into the night, and the wind picks up, and in it you swear you hear singing. You descend into the catacombs beneath, the old city of Krakow, where the stone ceilings sweat and the air tastes of iron and incense. This is not a place built for the living. Every footstep echoes like a knock on a coffin lid. You are here to follow the story of Father Leon Wysotsky, a man once celebrated as a healer and visionary, but who kept secrets older than Christianity itself. They called him the Bellfather. Each morning, he would ring the bells of St. Stanislaus Church with his own hands, even when illness racked his body. Locals claimed the bells cured madness, calmed screaming infants, and halted the spread of plague. Pilgrims came in droves, but none saw what lay beneath. In 1669, a sexton discovered a locked chamber beneath the bell tower. Inside, hundreds of wax effigies, each one pierced with rusted pins, arranged in circles around a pit lined with human teeth. At the center of the Peter book, bound in lambskin, handwritten in Latin and something far older. When confronted, Wysotsky did not deny it. He smiled and said, "The bells do not serve God, they serve memory, and memory must be fed." His arrest was swift, but his punishment quiet. Official records say he died of fever in a Jesuit infirmary. But the bells continued, ringing not by rope, not by hand. Witnesses described hearing them toll at midnight without a breeze, without cause. And with each ring, strange things happened. Chickens laid eggs filled with blood. Dogs howled until their throats tore open. Children woke screaming in languages they didn't know. You pass by the bell chamber now. Dust hangs in the air like fog. One of the bells, a massive bronze behemoth etched with symbols no scholar has ever translated, sways slightly. There is no wind. There hasn't been for hours. Historians whisper that Wysotsky was part of an unbroken chain of priest-summoners who used sonic frequencies to invoke the 13th choir, a name that appears in medieval grimoires alongside notes on exorcism, childbirth, and resurrection. The church denies it, but they sealed the chamber with 12 iron rings, each forged from the nails of plague victims. And yet cracks have appeared, not in the stone, but in the silence. Every year on All Souls' Eve, locals report hearing the bells again. They say it comes from below, and those who hear them don't sleep that night, not ever again. You step closer. There's an inscription. Near the altar, one missed by tourists, scrubbed by clergy, but still faintly visible. To call the old names, one must toll the old griefs. There is a sound like breathing, and then you swear you hear a single bell. Low, hollow, calling, but for whom? And how long has it been ringing? The air changes as you cross into the wetlands of County Sligo, Ireland, where the fog never lifts and the trees seem to lean closer with each step. Here, the ground bubbles beneath your feet, as if something underneath wants to rise. You've come searching for Father Odrin, who served a crumbling parish near the water's edge in 1741. He was known for his silver tongue, his sermons full of poetry and a peculiar habit. He only held mass beneath the full moon. At first, the villagers thought it quaint, even holy. But then came the night of the blood moon. A child disappeared, then another, and every full moon after, something was missing. A lamb, a dog, a girl. Father Odron told the people they were being tested. That loss was proof of devotion, but a single widow named Mayeb didn't believe. She followed him after Mass one night, lantern in hand, into the bog. She found him in a clearing surrounded by bones, and not just animal bones, small rib cages, tiny shoes. He wasn't alone. They say she saw a circle of hooded figures chanting in a language she'd never heard. And in the center, a pool of black water still as glassware, Father Odrin floated. Arms spread wide, mouth open, as if offering his breath to something. Below, when she screamed, the light in her lantern died. And when the villagers found her the next morning, she was alive, but changed. Her eyes were clouded, and she whispered one sentence, over and over. He married the moon, and she was hungry.